I have rolled away from you all your disgrace. In the name of God. Amen. The late Christopher Fry wrote a play called The Lady's Not for Burning. And there are two characters in it. Richard is a young servant who is romancing Allison, also a young servant. She's been raised in a convent. She's very sweet. And at one point, Richard says to her, if I asked you, if I ever asked you whether you thought you could love me, I would know for certain I was no longer rational. She answers him, why, I love you quite as much as I love St. Anthony, and rather more than I love St. Chrysostom. So if you'll indulge me for a moment on this Sunday morning, I cannot hide my love for St. Luke. Luke wrote his gospel, I guess, because he was in some way dissatisfied with the Gospels of Mark, and if he knew of it, Matthew's the gospel as well. I'm sure that Mark left out far too many details in the life of Jesus to suit Luke, who was by nature something more like a biographer and a storyteller, a gatherer of stories. Matthew meant to show that Jesus was the promised Messiah of the ancient prophecies, and that Jesus had come to found an institution called the church. Luke was not interested, or not primarily interested, in the kind of truth teaching that we call doctrine. No. What Luke loved was, first of all, the open man of the people character of Jesus. Even the children liked him. And then Luke loved that Jesus' good news is for all people, regardless of the state of their health, regardless of their occupation, or their religion, or their nation. Dear Luke was content to pass controversy by and to lose himself completely in this person, the one who had told, for example, the heart-rending story of the Good Samaritan. And if Luke's is my favorite of the four Gospels, I will say that its attractiveness is that the author himself is so easy to love. Sometimes you see one Gospel printed up in a booklet form and handed out for free to passersby on the street. They are usually, I'll change that, everyone I've seen has been St. John's Gospel. I have never understood this choice if the aim is to persuade the stranger to fall in love with Jesus himself. Luke seems to love the men and the women around him tenderly. I said that he was a storyteller, but I don't mean that he made up stories. At the start of his gospel, he wrote his friend Theophilus. He wrote, Theophilus, many have already set forth in order their declarations of those things that are believed among us. Many have done this. People sometimes, I think, regret that Luke omits some of the stories or changes some passages that are in Mark and Matthew and in John. But Luke alone really has any number of our favorite stories. If we had only 3 Gospels and did not have Luke, we would not, I guess, have the angel Gabriel standing in the very presence of God, going out first to Zechariah, and then 6 months later going out to Mary. We would not have Mary and Elizabeth, her kinswoman, standing together in their pregnancy, giving God the glory and rejoicing that their pregnancies mean that every evil empire on earth is going to fall. We wouldn't have Zacchaeus, too short to see Jesus in the crowd, and so he climbed a sycamore tree to get a good look at him. We would miss Jesus at age 12 in the synagogue talking with the teachers. We'd miss an old man, Simeon, in that temple, and an old woman, Anna, waiting to see the Messiah and greeting the dawn of the new age with their special songs. And we would not have several parables about wealth and its uses. Having said all this, can we not say, I'm missing, there we go, excuse me, I'm missing a page. We would not have Lazarus in his purple clothes. We would not have the beggar at the gate with the city dogs licking his sores. The woman losing a valuable coin. The housekeeper folding yeast into her bread. And finally, without Luke, we would not have today's gospel story. The younger lost son, the loving father, the grumbling older son. Because of this story, which is among the best known, prodigal, the word prodigal in ordinary conversation means one who returns after a long absence, right? Ah, the prodigal returns. Welcome back to the office, someone will say, after a vacation. In the network show of the same name, we have at base a son returning to visit his imprisoned father after years of estrangement, or so I'm told. Other than a reference to this special story, the very common meaning of prodigal, right, connotes lavish extravagance. Generally, we use it as an adjective or an adverb. We'll say, oh, look at all that food we're throwing a waste. What prodigal waste. We'll say, better get another dozen eggs. He's got a prodigious appetite. Having said all this, can we not say that if this younger son was wildly extravagant, it's his father who is being wickedly extravagant, and not just because his older son says so. The truth of the matter is, Father is offering a lavish, a heedless, and let's say it, friends, a wasteful love to each of his two sons. I name them sons and not brothers because I think it's the character of the father that is most attractive to certain classes of people, certain prisoners, certain rehab repeaters, certain people with diseases that have shame and sin attached to them, people who assume that they've been so bad that God has thrown them away. How bad is the younger brother? How bad he is to insist on his money so that he could leave home and then blow it all away until he becomes poor and hungry and humiliated until he drags himself home. These very marginalized women and men in jail, they get that. They also get this angry older brother, Mr. Perfect. They know him too. The surprise in the story is the attitude of the father. Is he at all angry? Jesus says no. As Jesus tells it, the father's first feeling is, I thought my son was dead, and now he is alive again. Now, I am aware that there are some joining us this morning here and online who are actually in deep mourning and who will never in this lifetime stop waiting to embrace a lost one again. I want you to know I see you. And I want us all to see that God is not the God of the dead. Jesus himself assured all of us God is only the God of the living, because all are alive in God. God never throws people on the trash heap. Whoever comes to me, I will in no way cast out. The beloved Psalm 55 assures us that God's thoughts are not our petty thoughts of vindication, and I told you so. God's plans are good. And they do not reduce simply to dividing the people of this planet into winners and losers. No. But yes, the grumblers too, those who are instinctively and always the contrarians, you, maybe it's we, you don't get left out of the party either. More good news for you. Even though you know you are disrespectful as well, you're not so perfect. There you are lecturing your generous father right in front of the servants and right in front of anybody who has stepped out of the party for a moment. You say things to your father. I never disobeyed one single order you gave. Now, who among Jesus' followers does that sound like? While this son of yours blows your goods and your money, I've been good and he's been bad. Oh, and I see plainly enough, Dad, that anything this little creep needs from now on is going to be coming out of the remaining estate, out of my share of the estate. Hey, that's my money. You must see, Father, It is just not that simple. Yes, in fact, I am jealous and angry because you are generous. Hey, look out! People are out there getting away with meals and milk and benefits they didn't earn and that they don't deserve. You know the old line. You see it every day in the comment columns of any newspaper. Dreary, dreary stuff. And you know why it's dreary? Because there is no one who has kept the whole law. And that's the requirement. Keep all of it. Don't just keep the parts you can manage. Keep all of it. No one has done that. Okay? And to move on, there are entire nations and peoples who have turned themselves into moral cesspools. And all peoples need salvation. They need rescuing. They need to be restored to God's favor, and not by requiring moral perfection of us, which is a very unseaworthy and rocking boat, but by a way that is open to all humans, by simply reaching out your hand and responding to God in trust, by agreeing that God is God and that you are who you are. Jesus' story seems a little incomplete because now does the older brother decide to give up his point? And a very fair point it is. Does he give that up and go join the party? Does the younger son remain with his father? Or after he gets comfortable again and starts to get bored, is he going to be off again? Perhaps to disappear for good? Or maybe worse, perhaps it's beginning to a cycle where he goes out, gets in trouble, comes dragging home, expects everyone to fix it for him, goes out again once he's well. Okay, I don't have a more complete ending to this story. But in God's eyes and in God's good time, we are going to see an ending to this story, and it's going to welcome not only the younger brother, but that wasteling, but it's also going to welcome back the older brothers who think there's nothing wrong with them and that they deserve every penny they've got. Because everyone will be understood to be equal before God. And all are equal because everyone is an equally surprising guest at an equally surprising and an equally undeserving guest at this dinner table, at this welcome table. And you know what else? Everyone is going to see this. Everyone is going to see this. And because we will have no longer any reason to be afraid of things or to fear that something unfair is going to happen, because righteousness and justice are the very foundation of the place. Everyone is going to agree that what God is doing is right. God is doing what needs to be done. There won't be any more grumbling. I have in previous sessions mentioned the preacher Rachel Held Evans, and I will let her have the last word this morning. The gospel, she writes, does not need a coalition devoted to keeping the wrong people out. It needs a family of sinners, saved by grace, committed to tearing down the walls and throwing open the doors and shouting, "Welcome! There's bread and wine. Come eat with us and talk." This is not a kingdom for the worthy. It is a kingdom for the hungry. How's that? All right, then. See you at the welcome table, everybody.